Chapter 33. Holly looked around to see if anyone else in the cafe had noticed, and she slowly pulled out a chair to sit beside Richard. Had she said something wrong? She looked at Richard's face in shock, not knowing what to say or do. She could safely admit that she had never been in this situation before. Tears rolled down his face, and he tried with all his might to stop them. Richard, what's wrong? She asked, confused, and placed her hand awkwardly on his arm and patted it. Richard continued to shake with tears. The plump lady, dressed in a canary yellow apron this time, made her way round the counter and placed a box of tissues on the table beside Holly. Here you go, she said, handing Richard a tissue. He wiped his eyes and blew his nose loudly, a big old man blow, and Holly tried to hide her smile. I'm sorry for crying, Richard said, embarrassed, avoiding eye contact with her. Hey, she said softly, placing her hand more easily on his arm this time. There's nothing wrong with crying. It's my new hobby these days, so don't knock it. He smiled at her weakly. Everything just seems to be falling apart, Holly, he said sadly, catching a tear with a tissue before it dropped from his chin. Like what? She asked, concerned at her brother's transformation. She had seen so many sides to him over the past few months that he had her slightly baffled. Richard took a deep breath and gulped down his tea. Holly looked up at the woman behind the counter and ordered another pot. Richard, I have recently learned that talking about things helps, Holly said gently, and coming from me, there's a huge tip. Because I used to keep my mouth shut, thinking I was superwoman. She smiled at him encouragingly. Why don't you tell me about it? He looked doubtful. I won't laugh. I won't say anything if you don't want me to. I won't tell a soul. Would you what you tell me? I'll just listen, she assured him. He looked away from her and focused on the salt and pepper shakers at the center of the table, and then he spoke quietly. I lost my job. Polly remained silent and waited for him to say more. After a while, Richard looked up to her face. That's not so bad, Richard, she said softly, then giving him a smile. I know you loved your job, but you can find another one. Hey, if it makes you feel better, I used to lose my jobs all the time. I lost my job in April, Holly, he interrupted her angrily. It's now September. There's nothing for me, not in my line of work. He looked away. Oh, Holly didn't know quite what to say. After a long silence, she spoke again. But at least Meredith is still working, so you still have a regular income. Just take the time you need to find the right job. I don't, I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but Meredith left me last month. He interrupted her again. At this time, his voice was weaker. Cody's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, poor Richard, she said, never liked the bitch. She had never liked the bitch, but Richard had adored her. The kids? She asked carefully. They're living with her, he said, and his voice cracked. Oh, Richard, I'm so sorry. Polly fidgeted with her hands, not knowing where to put them. Should she hug him? I'm sorry too, he said miserably and continued to stare at the salt and pepper shakers. It wasn't your fault, Richard, so don't go telling yourself it was. She protested strongly. Wasn't it? He said, his voice beginning to shake. She told me I was a pathetic man who couldn't even look after his own family. He broke down again. Oh, never mind that sleep bitch, Holly said angrily. You're an excellent father and a loyal husband, she told him strongly and realized she meant every word of it. Timmy and Emily love you because you are fantastic with them, so don't mind that demented woman says to you. She wrapped her arms around him and hugged her brother while he cried. She felt so angry she wanted to go over to Meredith and punch her in the face, although she had always wanted to do that, but now she even had an excuse. Richard's tears finally subsided and he pulled away from her and grabbed another tissue. Holly's heart went out to him. He had always tried so hard to do the right thing, and to create a perfect life for his family and for himself, and it hadn't worked out as he had planned. He seemed to be in a great deal of shock. Where are you staying? She asked, suddenly realizing that he had no home to go to for the past few weeks. In a B&B down the road. Nice place, friendly people. he said, pouring another cup of tea. Your wife leaves you and you have a cup of tea. Richard, you can't stay there, Holly protested. Why didn't you tell any of us? Because I thought you would work it out. We would work it out, but we can't. She's made up her mind. As much as Holly wanted to invite him to stay with her, she just couldn't. She had far too much to deal with on her own, and she was sure Richard would appreciate that. And what about Mum and Dad? She asked. They would love to be able to help you out. Richard shook his head. No, Kiara's home now, and so is Declan. I wouldn't want to dump myself on them as well. I'm a grown man now. Oh, Richard, don't be silly. Polly rolled her eyes. There's your old room. I'm positive you would be welcome back there. She tried to persuade him. Sure, I even slept there a few nights ago. He looked up from staring at the table. There's absolutely nothing wrong with returning to the house you grew up in every now and again. It's good for the soul. She smiled at him. He looked uncertain. Um, I don't think that's such a good idea, Oli. If it's Kiara you're worried about, then don't. She's heading back to Australia in a few weeks with her boyfriend, so the house will be less hectic. His face relaxed a little. Cody smiled. So what do you think? Come on, it's a great idea. And this way you won't be throwing your money away on some smelly old dump. I don't care how nice you say the owners are. Richard smiled, but it quickly faded. I couldn't ask mother and father, Holy. I wouldn't know what to say. I'll go with you, she promised, and I'll talk to them for you. Honestly, Richard, they'll be delighted to help you out. You're their son and they love you. We all do, she added, placing her hand over his. Okay, he finally agreed, and she linked arms with him as they headed out to their cars. Oh, by the way, Richard, thank you for my garden. Cody smiled and leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. You know, she nodded. You have such a huge talent, and I'm going to pay you every single penny you deserve as soon as I find a job. Her brother's face relaxed into a shy smile. They got into their cars and drove back to the house they grew up in. Polly looked at herself in the toilet mirror of the office building where her first job interview was taking place. She had lost so much weight since she had worn all her old suits that she had to go out and purchase a new one. It was flattering to her new slim figure. The jacket was long and went to just above her knees, and it was fastened tightly by the button at the waist. The trousers were just the right fit and fell perfectly over her boots. The outfit was black, with light blue lines going through it, and matched it with a light blue top underneath. She felt like a hotshot advertising businesswoman in control of her life, and all she needed to do now was to get sound like one. She applied another layer of pink lip gloss and ran her fingers through her loose curls, which she had decided to allow to tumble onto her shoulders. She took a deep breath and headed back out to the waiting area. She took her seat again and glanced around at all the other applicants. They looked far younger than Holly, and they all seemed to have a thick folder sitting of some kind sitting on their laps. She looked around and started to panic. Sure enough, everybody had one of those folders. She stood up from her seat again and headed over to the secretary. Excuse me, Holly said, trying to get her attention. The woman looked up and smiled. Can I help you? Yes, I was just in the toilet there, and I think I must have missed being given a folder. Holly smiled politely at her. The woman frowned and looked confused. I'm sorry. What folders were handed out? Holly turned and pointed to the folders perched on everyone's laps. The woman smiled and motioned her to come closer to her finger. Holly tucked her hair behind her ears and moved closer. Sorry, honey, but they're actually portfolios and they themselves brought themselves. She whispered so that Holly wouldn't be embarrassed. Cody's face froze. Oh, should I have brought one with me? Well, do you have one? Corinne asked with a smile. Cody shook her head. Well, then don't worry about it. It's not a requirement. People just bring these things to show off, she said, and Holly giggled. She returned to her seat, but continued to worry about this portfolio business. Nobody had said anything to her about any stupid portfolios. Why was she the last one to know everything? She tapped her foot and looked around the office while she waited. She got a good feeling from the place. The colors were warm and cozy. and the light poured in from the large Georgian windows. The ceilings were high, and there was a lovely feeling of space. Polly could sit there all day thinking. She suddenly felt so relaxed that her head didn't even jump as her that her heart didn't even jump as her name was called. She walked confidently towards the interview office, and the secretary winked at her to wish her good luck. Polly smiled back at her. For some reason, she already felt part of the team. She paused just outside the door and took a deep breath. Shoot for the moon, she whispered to herself. Shoot for the moon. That's the end of chapter 33. Thank you for listening.